Hello everybody. So we're going to be working on dividing polynomials today. And I thought we'd start with something that we already know how to do, and that is working with fractions. So we've got something like 2/5 plus 1/5. And we already have a common denominator of 5. And so what we would normally do is we would write this as 2 plus 1 over 5. Right? So we've got our numerator is just, we're going to add the 2 and the 1, and our denominator is the common denominator of 5, and this would be 3/5. Now, what if we wanted to go in reverse from, we had something like this, and we wanted to get up to here? And that's what we're going to be doing today. So if we did have something like that, like 2 plus 1 over 5, remember you can always, if you have a common denominator like this, or just a single denominator like this, or a monomial which is what we're going to be working with today, we can always rewrite this as 2 over 5 plus 1 over 5. So we can go in reverse like that. So knowing that, let's start simplifying some of these expressions. Here's one. So again, we have on the top, we've got a binomial in our numerator, and then we have in our denominator, we have just a monomial, or just in this case, it's just 7. So let's do what we were doing on previously, which is we'll split this up into 14x squared over 7 minus, this minus right here comes from this minus right here, and then 28x over 7. So now what we have to do to simplify this expression is just simplify this fraction and then simplify this fraction. So you can do that in any number of ways. We could just write the prime factorization for the numerator and the prime factorization for the denominator. So this would be 2 times 7 times x over 7 minus, and then this is 2 times 7 times x over 7. And then you can cancel. So this 7 and this 7 cancel, become 1 over 1. This 7 and that 7 cancel, become 1 over 1. And we're left with, on the left-hand side, we're left with 2 times 1 times x, which is just 2x squared. And then in our denominator here, we just have 1, so it's 2x squared over 1 minus. And then here we have 2 times 1 times x, which is 4x. And then in our denominator, here we've just got a 1, so it's over 1. So this is the simplified version of this expression up here. Let's try another one. All right, so we've got 65y cubed plus 45y squared divided by 5y squared. So now we have, instead of just a number down here, we've actually got a 5 and then a number or a coefficient, and then our variable y, and we're squaring y. So let's again split this up. We get 65y cubed over 5y squared plus, and that plus right here comes from this one here, plus 45y squared over 5y squared. So we can write the prime factorization for each of these. So this would be 5 times 13 times y times y times y over 5 times y plus, and then 3 times 5 times y over 5 times y. And then just go ahead and cancel. So this 5 and this 5 will cancel, become 1 over 1. This y and this y will cancel, this y and this y. Now we've canceled everything we can over on the left-hand side. We'll cancel everything on the right. So this 5 and this 5, this y and this y, this y and that y. So what we're left with on the left is 1 times 13 times 1 times 1 times y, which is 13y, over, and then down here we just have 1 times 1 times 1, so it's just over 1, so we don't have to write anything. And then plus, and then what we have left on the right is just 3 times 1 times 1 times 1, which is just 9. And in the denominator, we've got 1 times 1 times 1, which is just 1, so we're done. 13y plus 9 is the simplified version of this expression here. All right, so the book is also going to show us, this is really the same thing, it's just that we've written it differently. Instead of writing it as a fraction, we're just using the division sign here. And we can approach it the same way. And I'm just going to rewrite it as a fraction. So this is 32a squared b minus 16ab squared. All of that is being divided by negative 8ab. So let's we'll split these up into two fractions. So now we've got 32a squared b over negative 8ab minus 16ab squared over negative 8ab. Okay, now notice there's a negative down here in my denominator, and there is a negative in both of these denominators as well, and then this subtraction is right here, okay? So let's write the prime factorization, and then we'll cancel this stuff up. So we've got 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times a times b, and then over. This would be negative 2 times 2 times 2 times a times b minus, and then this is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times a times b over negative 2 times 2 times 2 times a times b. So I'll go through and cancel what's the same. So I've got this 2 and that 2, this 2 and that 2, this 2 and this 2, this a and this a, and then this b and that b. So, and then, well, let's cancel what's on the right here too as well. So this 2 and this 2, this and this, this a, that a, this b, and this b. Okay. So on the left-hand side, in the numerator, we just have 2 times a left, which is 4a. And then in the denominator, all we have is negative 1. Don't forget that negative. Minus, and then in the numerator on the right-hand side, we're just left with 2b over negative 1. So we can rewrite this as negative 4a minus negative 2b, or you could write it as negative 4a plus 2b if we add the opposite there. So this would be our simplified version of that initial expression there. All right, here's our last one. And we've got a trinomial in our numerator, and we still have a monomial in our denominator. All of the ones that we're going to work on today are going to be monomials in the denominator. So again, split it up. So I'll have 36x cubed y squared over 9x squared y plus 27x squared y squared over 9x squared y minus 9x squared y cubed over 9x squared y. Okay, so now we'll just rewrite all these with prime factorization, and then we'll cancel. So this will be 2 times 3 times 3 times x times x times y over 3 times 3 times x times y plus 3 times 3 times 3. And if you need to, when you're doing your prime factorization, if you need to do a factor tree, that's no problem. Go ahead and do that on the side. Times x times y. Whoops, too many x's. Undo. Y times y over 3 times x times y. Remember, once you get the prime factorization for your denominator, like this, you're just going to use it again there, so don't do it more than once. Just copy what you have on the first one. And then we got 3 times x times y over 3 times x times y. Okay, go through and cancel. So this 3 and that 3, we'll clean all this up. There we go. And then in this one, we're 3, x, y, x, y, and y. Okay, let's see what we got left over. So in our first fraction, we have 2 times x times y. So 2, whoops. So 2 times 2 is just 4 times x times y. And then we just have 1 in our denominator plus. And in our numerator on the second one, we're just left with 3y. In our denominator, we're left with 1. And then minus. In the numerator on the far one, we're left with just y times y. So that's going to be y squared. And again, we've canceled everything in this denominator as well, just like this one and this one, so there's just 1 down there. So this is the simplified version of this expression up here. Okay, if you have questions, bring them into class, and we'll get those answered.